it's not just the town. You look at the county, what they're doing. Your taxes from the county are gonna be as big a jolt as they are from the town. So we just have to look at this as this board has, in my opinion, looked to the future, and we're planning for the future. And hopefully this rate will help us get there. But if, like Alderman Pluttle said, if we end up with excess funds next June, we can always lower the rate. But we're on the right track now. That's a message to taxpayers in North Topsail Beach. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Swantek.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see the rate that we're at right now, especially since we put the new revenue stream for our capital improvements. That's a long time needed thing. Once we get that set up, then we will be in the green again, hopefully. And we're also paying off the SOBs very, very frequently now. So in all, I think we're all bearing the brunt of the thing right now, but next year, hopefully, we could lower it again. And hopefully the county will lower it.
Mr. Grant.
I won't be that short.
That's why you're last.
I know, I figured that was, this is a hard one, because one of the things we face as a town, which is, in my experience, very unusual, is over 90% of the facilities, the residences here, are people that basically it's their second homes, okay? And the vast majority of those, I believe, rent them out. And I think if you look at what, just from talking to people on the beach, what these places are going for, oceanfront's going for $8,000 to $9,000 a week. You're seeing building like we've never seen before. And so it's hard because if, and I'm speaking for myself, I don't rent my house out, like Don and I had talked about before. My house value is doubled under the reval. So obviously I'm gonna get hit with this. I can't turn it over to renters or those type of things. That's the hardest part of this for me, because having had a business in South Carolina, they actually tax it differently. Your second home is at a completely different tax rate than your primary home, like 3 or 4 times the amount. And that is not allowed apparently under North Carolina law for me looking at it, because I feel for the people, feel for everybody, but if I am bringing in record numbers of rental income right now, the impact of this is completely different on somebody that's a fixed income living in that house, and everything else. And our tax issue is, you know, if you looked at it, if we've had an unprecedented increase in values. I mean, obviously my house went up over 100% in 4 years. That's a pretty good increase. If values of the homes had gone up 7% and we're cutting the rate by 7%, it would have been a break-even type of thing and we would have been fine. And as I mentioned before, the average home here, and I agree with Connie's comments, I'm not gonna be formal with my board members since we're all friends, is, you know, it's one thing, and one of the taxpayers had written in who happens to live here all the time was talking about if we knock a penny out of this or that and looked at that individual's house, it was revalued at about $600,000. That 1 cent is $60 a year. And biggest concern that I've got as a town is followed up by what Mike said. The town's been kicking the can down the road for a long time on these capital projects. Not everybody here, but I'm old enough to remember the Jimmy Carter days when I was borrowing at 15, 16, and 17%. And if we get into that kind of period again, our ability to fund things, if we don't start paying for some of these things up front and taking on the brunt ourselves, are gonna make it so we can't do anything. If we have to build a firehouse and we have to pay 15% interest on it, that is a huge number for this town to try to absorb. I've also heard concerns in the past about why don't we build up the beach fund to be able to do things? Well, Mike decided to set up the BISAC committee. We're looking at that to be able to hit those things, but also to put money in there to be able to take care of our beaches and not rely on financing. The two things that I thought were very interesting, by the way, just real quick, on the $30,000 going into the beach planning thing, it's also the intent of the town to be filing for not bonds, what are they, grants, for a lot of this stuff to offset some of those costs as well, which I think, given the new person we've got working with BISAC and some other things, we're gonna have a lot more of that money coming in. And so when I look at this stuff, I don't like it. Half of our budget is basically public safety. I'm very comfortable with that. The fact that we are now taking 40% of our revenue or more and putting it into a capital fund and a beach fund, that's just not going for operating expenses, I think is very positive. The other thing to point out is, and I think Alice was being very nice about saying this, I just attended the Onslow County budget meeting, and they have approved a 10% across the board increase for all their employees, because there is I'm gonna call it a war, a fight going on in terms of hiring EMS people and police, and everybody is poaching everybody else because they don't have enough people working, and public safety has gotta be, paramount for us. So like I said, do I like the fact that it's gone up? No, but it's not about the tax rate, it's about the fact that these houses have gone up. And when my wife and I looked at what our house went up, and we're like, wow, but then we looked at the houses that had sold around us, and I'm like, well, apparently that's what they're selling for. But the hardest hit, and I think that's what Connie was talking about, it's for the person that lives here, that 5, 6, 7% that are here, that are not renting their house out, that don't have any recovery of those dollars by higher rentals, because we've seen increase in occupancy taxes and things like that. So anyway, like I said, the bottom line is we had a very unusual revow. While I hope that people's values stay up, you never know on something like that. And having talked with a number of the other officials from other towns, and I'm gonna use the wrong term, when boards have gotten cute with the revow and said, we're not gonna do this, we're gonna drop the rate and everything else, to a person, they've said they're right back in a year or two later, having to increase the rate. Two biggest concerns that we talked about as a board were, one is, we wanted to put a rate in so we didn't have to go back in for another increase in a year or two. Second thing is, thank goodness that we redid the USDA loan and put that in right now at that borrowed rate. I read recently the 30-year mortgage rate was 3.1% in December, and it's 5.7% today. We're not gonna be borrowing, I think our current FEMA loan is at 1.7%. There's no way the town's gonna be able to borrow money at that. And it's also something that the county talked about, is a reminder to people, we've got another 500,000 cubic yards of sand that's gonna be started this fall down in phase 5. Yes, that's a FEMA project, but keep in mind, FEMA reimburses, does not put the money up front. And so we're gonna have to borrow that money, and I would bet right now, we're gonna borrow at a higher rate than the one we just did.
So in closing?
What?
So in closing?
So in closing, I think it's a fair budget. I don't like, the revow hit us hard, but I do think we've taken a balanced approach to this. Thank you.
Well, I certainly appreciate everybody's time and effort that went into this budget, specifically the staff and all the board members. And what I appreciate the most is everybody's forward-thinking thoughts and process. As we said, we have kicked the can down the road too many times in the past. We're at the point now where we need a new fire station, we need new fire trucks. There's a list of capital items that do need to be planned for and budgeted for, so we're not in the situation where we can't afford to finance them later, or we're financing everything. So I just appreciate everybody looking at that. I think it's in the best interest of North Topsail Beach and all of their residents. And to also follow on the comments that Ms. Darian had made, and also Mr. Grant had made about compensation and retention for our employees. That is definitely something that we will consider we will keep it at our forefront. We will consider what we need to do with that, and I do anticipate more information coming back to the board on that in the future, and we may have to handle it as some type of a budget amendment if we feel that something is off track or off kilter there, but I think we need to do some analysis on that first. So what I need now is either a motion to accept the budget ordinance and adopt the budget, or to provide additional direction to staff.
I'll make the motion that we approve the budget as Ms. Darian proposed it. And I think it's a great thing.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any additional discussion? Kate, would you mind doing a roll call for this one?
Alderman Grant?
Aye.
Alderman Contact?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Benson?
Aye.
Alderman Hart?
Aye.
Alderman Fletta? Aye.
Okay. Then what is next is just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, adjourned.